There are some very interesting things I want to talk about when it comes to Sumeru. They unveiled their special program yesterday, and quite a few things I'm excited for. Obviously Sumeru itself and the 4 new characters, but there's something completely unrelated to Sumeru I just kind of want to express some hype in a little later. But let's go ahead and do our usual summary that we do for each patch. I believe this will be their largest patch to date. I'd say similar to Inazuma, but yeah, an entire new region similar to Mondstadt, Liyue. I really like the colorscape here. I've always been a fan of like nature and green and that sort of stuff. I didn't vibe with Inazuma too much. Liyue was fine, but I've always loved Mondstadt the most, and this is like taking Mondstadt's greenery to the next level. So I think I'll really enjoy exploring Sumeru. But yeah, I'm not going to touch on the area too much more. I like to more focus on like the mechanical aspects of patches and such, not necessarily backstories or lores or anything like that. As for the new characters, they really don't go into a lot of detail, but we can kind of see them in action here. Here's Tighnari, the first one we're talking about, a Dendro bow user. My man's got the biggest ears I've ever seen, but overall I actually really like his design. It's a little bit simpler, a little bit more down to earth, just kind of refreshing in a way. As far as Tighnari's basic kit, he has a normal attack that has 2 charge levels. When it hits the opponent, another attack will sort of burst out, some homing missiles, and will essentially lock on and do extra damage. I think his elemental skill sounds really fun, so similar to Mona, it is like a little area of Dendro that taunts enemies, but the fun part is his next 3 charge shots will have much reduced charging time, so he can kind of rapid fire the next 3 shots. So yeah, that sounds cool. As far as it's portrayed here, his burst is just a damage skill. It basically has 2 phases, a massive amount of missiles, hit the opponent, and then kind of jump up and hit them again. Also, I'm really glad his exploration passive shows us the unique things on the map. Like I think for Inazuma, it took until Goro until we got that. So really nice there, starting with a character that has this passive. Next up, we have Kolai, another Dendro bow user. There's probably some logical explanation why the first 2 Dendro characters are going to be both bow users. I mean, I guess it's because Tighnari is like her teacher, so of course he would be teaching her how to use a bow, I guess. But yeah, I really like her design as well. There is a little bit more going on, but I like the overall like color scheme, like the dark and the green. She reminds me a lot of like a forest elf, which I guess isn't too far away from the truth. They don't touch on her charge shots here, so I'm going to assume it's a basic charge shot. Nothing special like a secondary level or anything. She throws out a Dendro boomerang here with her elemental skill. Seems to only be a damage skill from what I can see. Her burst also only seems to do damage in a sort of AoE area. They didn't mention any other utility there, so that's what I have to assume for now. And finally, Dori. I mentioned this a few times in live streams, but her design is probably like one of my top 3 favorite in the entire game. It's so wacky, but somehow just works. She's our first non-Dendro Sumeru character, so that'll be pretty interesting. She is an Electro. She seems to be a greatsword user from the small snippet of gameplay they showed. I don't think that'll even matter too much since she is more of a support character according to them. Her skill doesn't seem to be particularly unique in any sort of way. It is similar to Tighnari's burst where she throws some kind of bomb, the bomb bounces back up and hits the opponent again. So kind of like a 2-phase attack. And yeah, it's her burst, which I think makes her a really interesting character. So she'll put her little genie bottle down, it'll summon a genie, and it'll connect to a nearby player. This will constantly restore your HP, but also your energy for your burst. I'm pretty sure she's the first one that does that like directly with a skill, you know? The connection between you and the genie can actually damage opponents as well, so I highly doubt it'll be a lot. That's probably its 3rd utility, or potentially useful for reactions. Speaking of which, I do want to touch on Dendro reactions a little bit because they go into more detail in the special program. As with all elements, there are 3 different reactions that can happen, and those are called Burning, Bloom, and Catalyze. Burning, of course, is a combination of Dendro and Pyro. It'll set the targets on fire. We've all experienced that at some point or another. Bloom is a combination of Hydro and Dendro, and it'll essentially create a little bomb. Several things can happen to these Dendro bombs once they are created. If you just keep creating more bombs, the earlier ones will explode. If you do nothing and the duration of the bombs expire, they'll explode. If you attack them with Pyro, they'll immediately explode and do extra damage. And if you attack them with Electro, they'll turn into small missiles. The reaction between Dendro and Electro is kind of equally complicated, but also I think can be very powerful depending on like the multipliers there. Essentially, Dendro and Electro create Quicken. Once they are quote unquote quickened, the next element to hit them, if that's Dendro or Electro, that will have its damage increased. I feel like that might be a little cumbersome to pull that off perfectly. You have to apply them and then make sure the next attack is the element you want to boost. So it definitely seems a little complicated, but I guess we'll have to see. As for the fourth new character, Dendro Traveler, I don't think they touched on him too much. I could see a few seconds of gameplay here and there. He kind of has like a Kaya-esque E where he like throws out a wave of Dendro. Also, of course, new characters means new weapons. I so love the design on the Hunter's Path there. The second one is a little bit more memey, I guess. It's kind of a fish. Poor fish. 5 new forgeable weapons as well. You can definitely see a clear sort of scheme going on there. And of course, I want to stop and talk about the new artifact sets as well. They don't really touch on it, but they do give us the information here, so that's cool. Deepwood Memories, Dendro damage bonus. That's to be expected, of course. The 4-piece set is rather simple. It'll decrease the target's Dendro resistance by 30% for 8 seconds. There's not much to say about this artifact set. It's most likely going to be best in slot for Dendro DPSs. From the little information they gave us, Tighnari, I think, could definitely be a main DPS, so it'll probably be the best on him. Then we have Gilded Dreams, which will give us 80 Elemental Mastery with its 2-piece set. A little more complex here. You'll either get an attack or an Elemental Mastery bonus, regardless of how your team is set up. But basically, you do an Elemental reaction, you'll get attack or Elemental Mastery, or both. 14% attack per character whose element is the same as the one equipping it. So up to 42% attack for a mono element team, and for each different element you have, you'll get 50 elemental mastery. So up to 150 if none of the team members have the same element as the one equipping this. So there will be a little bit of downtime with this, depending on how many reactions you have going on in your team. It could be a little bit, could be a lot, because it can only be triggered every 8 seconds with a duration of 8 seconds. Overall, this set, unless I'm missing something here, doesn't sound all that powerful. You should be able to have the buffs quite regularly, and it is a very diverse set. You can have this on probably half the roster and it'll be fine, but it is missing a bit of that oomph that more niche sets come with. Those are my initial thoughts anyway. Feel free to share your own in the comments though. We will also be getting what I assume is a new weekly boss here, the Terror Shroom. I guess it could be another world boss, but usually with new locations, they have new weekly bosses. We also have the Electro Regisvine. I'm a little bit confused they didn't give us a Dendro Regisvine here, but I guess this is what Dory will need for Ascension. New Ruin monsters as well. The Ruin Drake here has a pretty interesting mechanic in that it gains a resistance based on what you attack it with. So if you want to kill it quickly, you'll need to rotate elements a lot. I imagine they'll have this guy running around in Abyss soon. A couple of other new enemies they don't really touch on. You can see them here though. We'll of course have some events as well. In this event, you can get Kolai for free, which is pretty cool. So this event comes in 4 stages. First one is pretty casual, just taking photos of things around Sumeru. Second one is more combat focused, where you're fighting the new bosses with specific objectives in mind. Third one is more like racing, parkour, beating the clock, doing some maneuvers. And then the 4th stage again is combat focused, but not necessarily with the bosses. Next event will be Phase Trials. You'll be given like pre-built teams, so your own power doesn't really matter here. The gameplay aspect is pretty unique as well. You're going around sort of taking photos of the enemies charging at you, and time stops during this. This will allow you to observe their weak points, as well as dealing damage when you take the photo. Next we have Tablet Analytics. This is definitely a more standard event. It's, again, very combat focused. There will also be a random buff mechanic, but essentially kill opponents as fast as you can within a time limit. And finally, we have Lost Riches again. Old Man's coming back. You can now get a Dendro mini Seelie, or I guess just a green one. It's kind of exploration focused. You follow a Seelie around, collecting little dots and finding coins, digging for treasure. As for the banners we're going to be getting, they mentioned this way later than usual, but whatever. In Phase 1, you can choose between Tighnari or Zhongli, and Kolai will be in both banners. I would love some Zhongli constellations, but gotta go for the new character, of course. What's interesting about Tighnari, though, is that he is going to be in the standard banner once this is over. So what I'll probably do is get one Tighnari and then try and get some Zhongli constellations if I want more Kolais. In Phase 2, we have Ganyu and Kokomi with Dory as the 4-star. This is a little bit more unfortunate because I really do want Dory, but yeah, I'll probably get Ganyu constellations. I do kind of eventually want to get Ganyu to C6, then I think I would enjoy playing with her a lot more. At C6, I believe she has a much faster gameplay style, so that is the eventual goal. And now, finally, the thing I might be most excited about, the Strongbox is finally getting updated. we're gonna have every artifact set from 1.2 and back, I guess. They fade away from this screen a little too fast, but you can see down here there is a Heart of Depth, Blizzard Strayer, Crimson Witch. The Crimson Witch domain is such a pain to run still. So, oh man, I think when this drops, that might be the first thing I do, because I still have like 1,400, 1,500 artifacts. I'm always full. It's annoying. I'm just gonna get so many Crimson Witch. Besides that, we do have some more quality of life stuff. The Boon of the Elder Tree. Now you can just use this item next to a tree and gain the wood from it, instead of slapping it for 10 seconds. You can accelerate food processing with ore. This is something I basically never do, but for those that are really into the cooking scene, well, that is an option, I suppose. Then we have one for fishing, which is great for those that didn't already like suffer through the 5,000 fish or something you need for the achievement. Depending on how many fish you have previously caught, you'll get some buffs as long as you are in this ideal tension zone. They're also shortening the time in between versions from, I believe it used to be 6 weeks, and now it's 5 weeks. They say without reducing the gameplay content of each version. And outside of a very impressive musical orchestration for Sumeru's new soundtrack, that was pretty much it. But yeah, what are you most excited about when it comes to Sumeru? Just a new place to explore, a new place to chest farm, the new characters perhaps. Maybe you're weird like me and are most excited about this strongbox and being able to clear up some artifact space. Make sure to tell me what you think in the comments down below. Dropping a like or subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed is always greatly appreciated as well. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time.